So the other day we did fantasy series, my favorite ones that I've read throughout 2021, and today we are going to be talking about fantasy standalones. Hello everyone, I'm Rosa, welcome. So we are not necessarily ranking because honestly I just suck at ranking. It's so hard to say like this book is better than that book because honestly it depends a lot on my mood, but we're gonna try maybe, but don't take it as like this is how it is, okay? However, we are somewhat ranking the fantasy standalones that I've read this year, although not all of them. I've included 9. I've read a little bit more than 9. I found out that apparently I've not read a lot of standalones this year, but I've also not really read a lot of series, so what have I read? I'm so confused. Anyway, so we should get started. Yeah, let's just jump right into it. The first book that I want to talk about is Hunted by Meagan Spooner. This was my December buddy read over on my Patreon, so my book club if you want to join. There's a link to it in the description box. And this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's young adult fantasy romance with, I want to say, some magic in there too. I mean, there's a curse. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so that's kind of a given. We follow a girl called Eva who used to be quite poor, living in a cottage by the woods and was like into hunting and stuff. And then her family got money, got used to this rich life, except Eva was always kind of missing the woods, was kind of missing hunting and stuff. And so something happens, they lose their money and they have to move back to the cottage, and Eva starts hunting again. And one day she comes across the beast and hunts him back to his castle in the woods, and that like the valley's curse and stuff. There's a lot going on. This was beautifully written, obviously very young adult, but still beautifully written. But still, as if young adult can't be beautifully written. You know, there's the books that are like get to the point-ish, and then there's the more lyrical kind of writing books, lyrically written books. You get what I mean? This is the latter. I enjoyed it quite a lot. Did I feel like maybe there was something like a little bit missing from it? Yeah, but I would have wanted maybe a little bit more drama or something. I don't know. Just me personally. But this was very, very enjoyable. So I'm gonna give it a spot 9. Why did I not bring 10 books total to talk about? I'm not really sure. Super annoying that we're sticking to 9, but alas, that's how it is. The second book that I want to talk about is actually, I don't have a physical copy of it, but it's A Dance with the Fae Prince by Elise Kova. And this is also a retelling. I don't remember of what exactly, except that there's a couple of Cinderella points to it. Like, you can clearly see that it's kind of inspired by Cinderella, but there's also some other story on top of that. I don't remember which story it is though, and it's super annoying. Goodreads says Psyche and Eros, but I don't know that story, so I'm not sure. And it's also the second book in a companion novel series, which means that it's a standalone, but it's a part of like a series of books that take place in the same universe. So we follow our girl, I don't remember her name, but she has 2 stepsisters, one who she's friends with and one who's not very nice, and she also has a bit of an evil stepmother. So it's kind of her turn to get married off, and she gets married to the stranger that she's never allowed to look at. She always has to wear a blindfold when she's around him. They start to bond though, and she's kind of like, I want to see him, and she just can't. An important thing to note as well is that the house that she's taken to, his house, is right up to the woods that are filled with fae, and the fae in this world are very dangerous. So she's not allowed to go into the woods. However, one day something happens in the woods, and as a result, she's taken off to the Fae realm. So you can sort of try to figure out what the heck is going on there. I'm not telling you anymore, but it was enjoyable. I liked it a lot. I read it right after I read the first companion novel in this, which is A Deal with the Elf King. I liked this one a lot better. Why did I not include the other one on this list? That would have made it 10. Anyway, but yeah, I did enjoy it. I liked the writing. I was maybe expecting a little bit more from it. Not really sure, but I'm looking forward to the third one as well that's coming out, which is something to do with the vampire king, I think. I don't remember exactly what the title is, but it's coming out at some point. Maybe next, or maybe in 2022, or maybe in 2023. Not really sure. This is also new adult fantasy romance retelling, so we're getting a little bit closer to something that resembles steaminess in it, but it's not like smutty in a way, so yeah. And then we have The Last Legacy by Adrienne Young. This takes place in the same world as the Fable books that you can see right over here, Fable and Namesake. We actually meet up a couple of characters that are in those books as well, but you don't have to read those books to read this. So this is a standalone. This is young adult fantasy, a bit adventure-y, a lot of family stuff. And romance, just like a smudge of romance. Or I mean, maybe a little bit more than a smudge. In this book, we follow Bryn Roth, who is from a very peculiar family. Not peculiar in a charming way, just kind of family means something different to the Roths, and it's quite clear when you read the books that it does. But she's not been living with them in their house. She has been living with, I think it's a grandmother or something, until on her 18th birthday she receives a letter from her uncle telling her to come back to the house and live with the family and work for them and stuff. So that's what she does. While she's there, she meets their not family Smith. I don't know what to call him, his title, but let's just call him Smith, who she's very drawn towards. And while she's there, she also has to kind of learn how to deal with the family and their dynamic and figure out her spot in this family, because it's not easy. So this was very enjoyable. I read this very quickly. It's also a thin book. I think it's about 300 pages actually. Yeah, 320. And I like Adrienne Young's writing a lot, so I definitely want to look more into more of her books. This was very enjoyable. I highly recommend that you check out the Fable series or duology before you go into this one though, or if you just want to like check them out anyway. Fable is a very, very likable character, okay? Not to say that Bryn isn't. She definitely is too, but I just feel like you should read those books as well. This was very enjoyable though, so. And I really liked reading about their kind of special family dynamics. So, and then we're gonna talk about The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. This is young adult fantasy, romance, witches, magic, that sort of vibe. This is, just as a note, this is definitely more of a character-driven story instead of a plot-driven story, so if that is not your thing, just be aware of that. But I found this very enjoyable. I like the way that it was written. Like if I like the plot of a story, but I don't like the way that it's written, that'll really ruin it for me. I can't look past it, which I feel is understandable. But this was very, very nicely written, so good on you, Rachel Griffin. It's also a debut, by the way. In this book though, we follow our lead girl whose name is Clara. And in this world, or in this version of our world, we have witches that are kind of bound to each season. So say that I would probably be like a winter witch or something, and one of you could be like a spring witch. That means you can't really use your magic to its full power during winter season, while I can't use my powers to its full effect during the other seasons than winter. Clara, however, is a never witch, so her magic changes according to the season. She has magic throughout all the seasons. And in this version of our world, just like in our world actually, we're dealing with environmental issues that witches are supposed to kind of be able to keep at bay, but the issues are getting a little bit too much to handle for them. So there's some issues within the witch community, and Clara is supposed to be the solution to these issues. However, she has stuff to deal with being an Everwitch. Not really, she's the only one. So that's what this is about. And it's beautiful. I love this very, very much. It's fantasy, but it's obviously touching on real life issues that we also have in our world, and it's nice to see a different take on it. So yeah, but I like this quite a lot, enjoyed it quite a lot, so yep. And then we're gonna talk about The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd-Jones. This is young adult, kind of horror, but not really fantasy. I mean, kind of horror because it has horror aspects, but it's not like full-on horror. I wouldn't say that it's scary. It just does have horror aspects to it. Fantasy, romance, magic, fairies, zombies. A lot of good stuff in this one. In this book, we follow... I'm gonna just give up on the names because I don't remember any of them. Except maybe the next one. Or the last three, actually. Four. The last four. I checked anyway. Her name is Rin. So we follow Rin, who lives with her brother and her younger sister. The parents are deceased. They are orphans, but they're still kind of making do, somehow pulling through it to make sure they don't end up on the street. And they live in a town that is placed right next to a forest, again, another forest. And a lot of strange stuff is happening in this forest, like bone houses, aka skeletons, coming back to life and attacking people who go into the forest. Then one day, this new guy comes to the town, village. I should probably call it a village. It's a very small little place. And things start to go crazy. The skeletons are no longer just kept in the woods, they're going into the village and they're attacking people. So Rin and this guy decides to go off to figure out how they can lift the curse that is causing these people to come back to life and attacking people. So they're gonna go into the mountains, and that's all I'm gonna say. And I really enjoyed reading this. Like, I really enjoyed this read. I just said that twice. That's fine. Anyway, this was nicely written as well. Very easily digestible with it being young adult as well. And it takes a lot for me to be scared of stories. So the horror, that's why I don't think it's horror, but there are horror aspects to it. It's like, it got a little bit creepy now and then, but not like full on, but then again, I'm also kind of desensitized to it, so it might be really scary to one of you, I don't know. But I did really enjoy this. I felt like there was a nice balance between the different aspects to the book as well. There was some stuff about family too, and yes, family bonds, but also new bonds, new friends, and mystery, a little bit of a mystery. So I enjoyed this quite a lot. The fourth last book that we are talking about is House of Hollow by Krystal Sutherland, another kind of horror book. This one was more gross, more disgusting than the Bone Houses was. Definitely a little bit more horror-ish than the Bone Houses was. So this is young adult horror, mystery, like a bit of a thriller now and then too, fantasy too. Obviously we're talking about fantasy standalones today, but I have to mention it. And just kind of gross at times. Just kind of gross at times. Just so you know. A little bit gory. In this book we follow three sisters, or specifically one of them. A girl right here, I think, maybe. They were taken away from their parents in Edinburgh one day when they were kids, and came back 30 days later, slightly changed, and then with time their eyes grew black and their hair turned white and they were just changed. Yeah. Fast forward some years, we are following the girls again, and the oldest one has become famous. The middle girl, the middle daughter, sister, is also living a life to the fullest, and then our lead girl basically just wants to go to school. But then one day, the oldest sister disappears, and the other two take it upon themselves to figure out what happened to their older sister. And that's what this book is about. I hope that synopsis made sense. And I like this a lot. I had a good time trying to guess exactly what was going on. There were points that I did not pick up on at all, and there were points that I figured out. So you always get a lot of breadcrumbs in these kinds of stories, and it's kind of fun to guess your way to the result before you get to it, if that makes sense. And I had a good time doing that in this one. It's a very fast read as well. I think it's less than 300 pages. Yeah, it's just above 290, so it's a very fast read. Young adult too, so very easily digestible, but kind of gross at times. Just want to point that out again. It's kind of gross at times, so just be aware of that. However, very, very lovely, like easy horror book to read as well without it being like too scary too, I think. So yeah. House of Hollow, also one that was suggested by so many of you, so thank you for that. And then we're gonna go into the last three. We're starting out with Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is a young adult retelling of the, or would you say it's a retelling? It's a prequel kind of story. It's about the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. It is a romance, and it is a whimsical, magical, fun, but also heartbreaking, just so you know. And I'm not gonna say too much about this book other than we follow our lead girl, Catherine, the Queen of Hearts, before she became the Queen of Hearts. She wants to be a baker. She wants to own her own bakery with a friend of hers, but she is from a wealthy family, and girls from wealthy families are kind of expected to marry and be a good wife, and definitely not have their own bakery. So at a ball, a royal ball, the king suddenly decides that he wants to propose to Catherine. He wants her to be the queen, and Catherine is like, no, I don't think so. So she runs off and bumps into the new court jester, who is called Jester? Court joker called Jester? It's called Jest. Why did I forget his name? Anyway, the new court jester or joker called Jest. Yeah, and the two of them start to court in secret. And that's all I'm gonna say. That's literally all I'm gonna say. They're drawn towards each other from the start. It's very cute. This book was, I really like Marissa Meyer's writing. Just want to say that before we go into it, which is also why I'm really looking forward to reading the Luna Chronicles, which I still have not read. I've talked about that since I started talking about books on this channel, and I've still not read them, and it's kind of embarrassing. It's fine, okay. They're standing like right up. Can you see them? Yeah, they're standing right up here, but I've still not read them. It's fine. We'll get to it. 2022, okay? Lunar Chronicles. But I really enjoy her writing, so I'm really looking forward to getting into that series. Also the Renegades as well, and also Gilded. This was very fun to read. It was kind of tense at times, and like I feel like everyone knows Queen of Hearts as a character, so throughout reading this, she's just evil. Like everyone knows, right? She's evil. Off with your head and all that stuff. So throughout reading this book, you're kind of wondering like, how did she become like that? Because Catherine is not like that. It's also incredibly frustrating at times because you kind of know, and also because Catherine makes some decisions that you would not necessarily fully agree with, but I feel like for a book to make you, or to evoke those kinds of emotions, it has to be good in some way, right? So this was very enjoyable for me, but also a lot of other things. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, would recommend it very, very much. So yeah, and now we're going into my 2 5-star standalone fantasy reads of 2021. The first one that we're going to talk about is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which I actually read this month, so December. That is so shiny. Can you even see that? I don't really know. Anyway, The Night Circus is kind of hard to explain. It's an adult fantasy, historical fiction, magic, magicians, not witches, but magicians, and romance story. Yeah. It's very slow paced, which is why I would say that it's definitely not for everyone. It's very atmospheric. It's very kind of abstract at times as well, I want to say. And I just enjoyed every second of it. Like, it made me feel so many things. So in this story, we follow Celia and Marco, and they are magicians working at a night circus. This is why it's difficult to explain. Okay, let's try. So we have Celia and Marco. Both are magicians. They are brought up by Celia, by her dad, Marco by kind of his adoptive dad. I don't really know how to explain that situation. They're both magicians. They are brought up as magicians, and they have to enter this duel that basically their fathers decided for them. So they did not knowingly go into this. They were just kind of brought into it. And the venue is this circus that only shows up at night, and at dawn it's gone again. You basically follow the story of Celia and Marco throughout the years, but also how the Night Circus was built up as well throughout the years, and there's a lot of process there, it's difficult to explain, but very enjoyable if you are into atmospheric and not necessarily fast-paced stories. I would definitely recommend this one. I realize now that I've literally never heard another person try to summarize this. Like, literally never have, I don't think. And I'm happy for them. I'm happy that others have not done that, or that they've not had to do that often, at least. Not often enough for me to notice, because that was terrible. Anyway, the book is really good though, so just very hard to summarize. And the last book that we are talking about, my top best, I would say this is probably my favorite standalone for 2021 that I read, and it should not be a surprise, is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And I'm still not over this, okay? I read it in November. I don't want to talk about it. We're gonna do it anyway, okay? In this book, we follow Patroclus, who is an exiled prince, and also Achilles, who is a half-god. What a mix. Okay. We kind of follow them throughout growing up, so from Patroclus being sent off to this place where Achilles' dad, the human part of his parents, has this place set up for orphaned boys or just exiled boys, and the two of them are brought together, they become friends, they grow older, and then they become more than friends, and it's a very touching story. And then if you know the story of Troy, is that how you say it? Is that what it's called? Anyway, there was a situation about, oh gosh, there was a man whose wife was abducted by this other man. So we have two sides, the Greek and the other people that I forgot the names of. It's fine. Helen of Sparta. wait, are the other ones the Greeks then? I honestly don't remember right now. But Helen of Sparta is abducted and there's this very long war fought over Helen to bring her back. And they go off to this war and stuff happens. And that's all I'm gonna say. So this is both a coming of age story, but it's also a coming out story, and it is very touching but also very brutal at times and definitely heartbreaking. So just be aware that when you go into it, this is a hard one to read through, but very beautifully written, and Madeline Miller did an amazing job on this. So I would recommend it to basically everyone. Yeah, just a little bit on the harder side to read. There's a lot of names in there that I personally had a hard time remembering. And I'm usually good with names, she says, knowing that she's failed on several several lead characters' names throughout this video, but usually good at names, okay? These were hard though to remember. But yeah, beautiful story, would recommend. 10 out of 10. I give it a 5 out of 5, like a solid 5 out of 5. This made me cry several times, so this made me cry during a 24-hour readathon, which was fun to record afterwards. I love crying on YouTube. I love it. Anyway, so yeah. Oh, and this is definitely adult. Would you call it a retelling or just Greek mythology inspired? Romance? Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna call it. Yep, and that was my 9 favorite fantasy standalones that I read this year. If you want to watch more wrap-up videos, there was another one released yesterday, which was my favorite fantasy series that I've read this year, and tomorrow will be my best reads in general, so not just fantasy series that I've read or standalones, but like also including first books in series that I didn't talk about in yesterday's video, and there's a lot to talk about in that one, so yeah. Of course, if there are other wrap-up videos that you like from me, let me know in the comments. If you've read any of these books, also let me know in the comments, let me know your thoughts, and that is all. So if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and also if you're new here and you want to hang out, nerd out, and talk about books with me and everyone in the comments, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button, and that is all. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!